Welcome back to the Deep Dive. Today we are looking at an actor whose entire career feels like, well, an affront to the whole idea of the traditional Hollywood leading man, a true cinematic disruptor.
That's a great way to put it. We're talking about someone who was, by the standards of the day, almost uncastable.
Right.
Yet through just sheer talent and this unwavering dedication to the method, he became one of the most respected, most consistently rewarded actors of his generation.
And he did it by playing the marginalized, the antihero, characters just defined by their deep emotional vulnerability.
Exactly.
Okay, let's get into it. We have poured over a huge stack of sources, articles, interviews, biographies, all covering the life, the career, and the reception of American actor and filmmaker Dustin Lee Hoffman.
And our mission for this deep dive is pretty ambitious. We're going to trace this surprising, decades-long journey, a career that spans from 1960 all the way to the present day.
We're really tracking that pivotal transition, aren't we? I mean, a struggle that lasted over a decade.
Oh, absolutely. From a perpetually struggling stage actor in New York City to becoming a central figure in that cinematic revolution we call New Hollywood.
And as we go through his defining roles, we'll be focusing on the surprising facts, the intense preparation that earned him his 2 Academy Awards, 4 BAFTAs, 5 Golden Globes. The list just goes on. It's a legacy built on demanding that Hollywood look beyond its own, superficial definitions of what a star should be.
Yeah.
So let's start at the very beginning, because the context of his early life, it really sets the stage perfectly for the struggle he was about to face.
So Dustin Lee Hoffman's roots are, surprisingly mundane for the kind of drama he would later create. He was born in Los Angeles.
Which, as you said, is so ironic for a guy who ended up defining himself by rejecting the whole LA studio system.
Exactly. He was the younger of 2 sons. His father, Harry Hoffman, worked as a prop supervisor at Columbia Pictures before becoming a furniture salesman, and his mother was Lillian Gold.
So there was some connection to the industry then, and it was there from birth, literally. He was named after a stage and silent screen actor, Dustin Farnham.
It's almost like the name preordained his path, even if his family life wasn't particularly theatrical.
Right. His older brother, Ronald, he took a much more practical route, became a lawyer and an economist.
And the family history, when you trace it back, is rooted in Ashkenazi Jewish immigration, specifically from Kiev, in what was the Russian Empire, and also from Yai, Romania.
And this ethnic background is so crucial, especially because, as the sources point out, his upbringing was explicitly non-religious.
Yeah, he said he had, and I quote, no memory of celebrating holidays growing up that were Jewish. He only realized he was Jewish around age 10.
And mostly because other people told him he was.
Exactly. And that late connection to his own heritage, maybe that's what informs the depth he later brought to playing outsiders. He embraced this ethnic realism that Hollywood usually just shied away from.
Yeah, our sources say he's since become more observant and really regrets not being fluent in Hebrew.
Now, if we look at his education, his initial plans were incredibly traditional. After graduating from LA High in 1955, he went to Santa Monica College to study medicine.
Medicine, that's about as far from acting as you can get. The definition of a stable career.
But his first artistic passion wasn't even acting, it was piano. He wanted to be a classical pianist, studied it for years.
Until he admitted with that classic bluntness of his that he just did not have an ear.
Right. And the big shift came when he took an acting class, thinking it would be an easy A to pad his grades.
And instead, he caught the acting bug.
That one decision, just looking for an easy class, led him to leave college entirely and join the Pasadena Playhouse. And this is where the mythology of his generation really begins.
Because at the Playhouse, he meets Gene Hackman.
Another future titan of cinema. And the struggling artist story really solidifies when he follows Hackman to New York City.
I mean, the sources paint this picture of just relentless hardship. For years in the 60s, you have Hoffman, Hackman, and Robert Duvall.
3 future Oscar winners.
All roommates, living together, just struggling desperately to find enough stage work to pay the rent.
And you can feel the psychological toll. Hackman later said, the idea that any of us would do well in film simply didn't occur to us. Their ambition was the stage. Film was like a fantasy.
And this wasn't a brief period. He spent 10 years doing odd jobs, often unemployed, a struggle he later, immortalized in Tootsie.
And we have to talk about why that struggle lasted so long. The sources are unanimous. It was his appearance.
The single biggest obstacle. Vanity Fair said his look and his size made him seem uncastable.
Utterly uncastable in that era. And this bias was driven home early and by his own family.
Yeah, that's the famous story about his Aunt Pearl.
Who warned him, in no uncertain terms, you can't be an actor. You are not good looking enough.
Wow. That kind of definitive rejection from family, it's a powerful driver. It forces you to be defined by transformation, not by type.
It basically sets up his whole career as an act of professional defiance. He couldn't play the hero, so he had to redefine what the hero or the anti-hero looked like.
He even briefly left acting to teach during that time, but he came back and he studied at the legendary Actors Studio.
And that's critical. The Actors Studio is where he becomes this dedicated method actor. It's all about intense psychological identification with the character. Since he couldn't rely on his looks, he had to immerse himself in the character's internal life.
And that paid off first in the theater. His Broadway debut was a tiny part in 1961. But he wasn't just waiting for roles, he was learning the craft. Assistant directing for guys like Ulu Grossbard.
Right, on plays like A View from the Bridge, which, coincidentally, starred his old roommate Robert Duvall.
By the mid-60s, his reputation on the stage was solid. He got critical acclaim for his sharply outlined and vividly colored performance in an off-Broadway play.
And then he won a Drama Desk Award in 1966 for another play, eh? So he was a respected, established talent in New York theater. He'd proven Aunt Pearl wrong, at least on the stage.
But for film, that door was still sealed tight. That is, until 1967.
His film career officially starts, pretty quietly, with a black comedy called The Tiger Makes Out, co-starring Eli Wallach. But the story around it is really about his continuing financial struggle.
This is where the pre-fame desperation really hits you. Right after wrapping that movie, he had to fly to Fargo, North Dakota to direct 2 community theater productions.
That's $1,000.
$1,000. He needed that money just to hold him over until his film payment came through. The guy had a feature film under his belt and was still working what amounted to minimum wage gigs.
Which just underscores the seismic, almost miraculous nature of his next role.
The Graduate.
1967.
Yeah.
And the director, Mike Nichols, was the one who took the chance.
Right, and Nichols had actually rejected him the year before for a Broadway musical because he couldn't sing well enough. Alan Alda got that part.
But Nichols was so impressed by Hoffman's energy in that failed audition that he took this monumental risk.
Nichols himself called it an act of tremendous courage, casting this unknown stage actor as Benjamin Braddock in a mainstream Hollywood film. It was just unprecedented.
And of course, the film was a cultural phenomenon, a massive hit. The story of the college grad having an affair with Mrs. Robinson. It defined a generation, and Hoffman was an overnight sensation.
Gets his first Academy Award nomination. He lost to Rod Steiger, but still.
But the real impact wasn't just the box office. It was the shift he represented. Time magazine called him a symbol of youth, a new breed of actors. He just felt different from the Rock Hudsons of the world.
Screenwriter Buck Henry said his success changed the whole idea of what a male lead should look like. He compared him to Humphrey Bogart.
Which is a fascinating comparison, a character actor suddenly redefining the leading man.
And critics were not shy about his looks. Life magazine joked that if Dustin Hoffman's face were his fortune, he'd be committed to a life of poverty.
I mean, that really highlights the magnitude of the change. Talent and realism were finally challenging physical perfection in Hollywood.
Turner Classic Movies credits him with breaking the mold of the traditional movie star, bringing a new candor, ethnicity, and eagerness to dive deep into complex, even unlikable characters.
He used the perfect, imperfect face of New Hollywood.
But let's bring it back down to earth for a second. Even after The Graduate, the money was still tight.
Oh yeah. He was paid only $20,000 for the film. After expenses, he netted $4,000.
$4,000. And the most shocking detail, which the sources confirm, is that after spending that, he briefly filed for unemployment in New York City.
$55 a week.
Can you imagine? An Oscar-nominated global star on unemployment? It just shows the disconnect between fame and financial stability back then.
And that fame brought its own problem, typecasting. So his next big move in 1969's Midnight Cowboy was a brilliant strategic counterattack.
He took the role of Ratzer Rizzo, the sickly, limping con artist, precisely because it was the polar opposite of the clean-cut Benjamin Braddock.
He was determined to prove he was a true character actor, not just a type.
And the story of how he got that part is legendary. The director, John Schlesinger, still saw him as the preppy Braddock.
So Hoffman took matters into his own hands. He met Schlesinger in Times Square, but he was fully dressed as a convincing homeless person. Dirty raincoat, greasy hair, the works.
Schlesinger walked right past him, didn't even recognize him.
The transformation was so total, he got the part on the spot.
Mm-hmm.
And of course, the film won Best Picture, and Hoffman got his second Oscar nomination.
Critic Peter Biskin called Ratzer Rizzo one of the landmark performances of movie history.
It was cemented. He wrapped up that revolutionary decade with John and Mary, co-starring with Mia Farrow. They were on the cover of Time as the stars of their generation. The accolades were just stacking up.
So the 1970s, this is where he becomes a consistent, bankable star, but he just refuses to take the easy roles.
No, he moves right into these experimental, physically demanding, often controversial projects.
Kicking off with Little Big Man in 1970, this film required just an extreme transformation. He plays Jack Crabb, aging from a teenager to a 121-year-old man.
And this was a huge statement about his method commitment. It wasn't just makeup, it was deep physical character work, changing his voice, his posture, his energy. It showcased his insane range right at the start of his career.
Then he does a string of other difficult films, Straw Dogs, Papillon. He was deliberately choosing these morally ambiguous characters.
Which brings us to 1974's Lenny, where he plays the controversial comedian Lenny Bruce. That earned him his third Oscar nomination.
What's so interesting is that he initially turned it down. He thought the script was weak.
But then he dove into Bruce's life, his routines, and he found this deep personal connection. He saw Bruce's willingness to push boundaries, his spontaneity, his guts.
He said, "I began to feel an affinity with him. I love to provoke." So the role let him channel his own anti-establishment impulse.
And the critics loved it. Judith Kreese said he was vanishing into the Bruce persona to simply stunning effectiveness. The film got 6 Oscar nominations, including Best Picture.
And this theme of challenging institutional power flows right into his next huge film, All the President's Men in 1976.
Starring alongside Robert Redford, playing Carl Bernstein, investigating the Watergate scandal less than 2 years after it happened.
The characters are so different, Bernstein and Lenny Bruce, but they're spiritually aligned, aren't they?
Absolutely. Both of them are figures who set themselves against the abuse of power. One uses comedy, the other uses journalism.
The film was a smash hit, a spellbinding detective story, and that pairing of Hoffman and Redford, they were ranked as number 27 on AFI's list of 100 heroes.
Now let's talk about the other big film from 1976, Marathon Man, because this one became the benchmark for discussing the extremes of American method acting.
This is the one with Laurence Olivier, a chilling thriller. Hoffman plays a grad student who gets tangled up with a Nazi war criminal.
And to get into the right mindset for the role, to achieve that severe, traumatized state, Hoffman went without sleep for several days.
Just deliberately letting his body get distressed. This is classic, intense method preparation, living the role.
And this leads to maybe the most famous anecdote of his entire career. The classically trained Laurence Olivier sees Hoffman's haggard state on set, right before the famous dental torture scene.
And after Hoffman explains his whole process, Olivier delivers that legendary line.
"My dear boy, have you ever tried simply acting? It's much easier."
It's a perfect encapsulation of the two schools of thought. Olivier's classic, controlled craft versus Hoffman's visceral, lived immersion.
But there was more to Marathon Man than just method acting. It also revealed his deep moral conviction. He had a major disagreement with the screenwriter, William Goldman, about the ending.
The script called for his character to cold-bloodedly kill the Nazi.
And Hoffman refused, point blank. He said, "I won't play a Jew who cold-bloodedly kills another human being." He argued that his character's humanity was paramount.
That shows his commitment wasn't just to the role, but to an ethical framework that he wouldn't compromise.
And the decade culminates with a profound turning point, both personal and professional. 1979's Kramer versus Kramer.
This is where he wins his first Academy Award for Best Actor. The film sweeps the major awards, including Best Picture.
And the subject matter, a painful divorce and its impact on a young son, was intensely difficult because it mirrored his own life. He was going through a divorce during filming.
So the role required this huge emotional transformation on screen, from a work-obsessed ad director to a responsive, concerned father.
And he found the process deeply painful, but also therapeutic. He said, "I got closer to being a father by playing a father." That's very painful to say.
He gave so much credit to the director, Robert Benton, for creating a safe space to explore those raw emotions. It's a perfect example of turning real-life pain into transcendent art.
So as we move into the 1980s, Hoffman really solidifies his reputation for just radical versatility.
Yeah.
He shifts gears dramatically from intense divorce drama to well, to groundbreaking comedy.
Tootsie, 1982, an absolute masterclass. He plays Michael Dorsey, this struggling perfectionist actor who adopts a female persona, Dorothy Michaels, to get a job.
It earned him his 5th Oscar nomination. And critic David Denby captured it perfectly when he said the character embodies vulnerability and drive in perfect proportion.
Yeah, he didn't just play a man in a dress. He used the disguise to explore sexism and chauvinism. Dorothy was vulnerable, she was intelligent, and ultimately, she was way more successful than Michael.
The transformation was total, external, and internal. But even on this huge hit, there were challenges. Hoffman was apparently grieved that he didn't get the rehearsal time he wanted, that perfectionism never went away.
And there's an interesting anecdote tied to this film about the price of integrity in Hollywood.
Yeah, the actor Gary Oldman reported that Hoffman recalled making some candid comments to a very powerful industry figure after Tootsie.
And the fallout was that he couldn't find work in Hollywood for a while, a sort of unofficial blacklisting, even after that massive success.
It says a lot about the industry's resistance to uncompromising artists. But what does he do? He just retreats to the stage, which he always considered his true home.
And in 1984, he returns to Broadway to take on one of the great American dramatic roles, Willy Loman in Death of a Salesman.
And this was deeply personal for him. He first read the play when he was 16 and said it was a blueprint of my family. He saw himself as the loser, the flunky in the Loman family.
He trained like a boxer for that emotionally draining role, knowing he had to deliver that devastation 8 shows a week. He even reprised the role for TV and won an Emmy and a Golden Globe for it.
Okay, so then we get to 1987's Ishtar.
Ah, yes, the legendary flop. It's almost as famous for its failure as The Graduate is for its success.
He co-starred with Warren Beatty as 2 talentless singer-songwriters. The production was a disaster, the budget ballooned, and the reviews were just overwhelmingly negative.
But what's so remarkable is Hoffman's defense of it. He offered this profound justification for the film's statement.
He argued, it is far, far better to spend a life being second-rate in something that you're passionate about than to spend a life being first-rate at that which you're not passionate about.
He's defending the philosophy of pursuing art over just being good at something.
Yeah.
Which is fascinating.
And, the film has developed this cult status. Quentin Tarantino loves it. So maybe some great failures are more interesting than safe successes.
And as he always does, he bounced back immediately and spectacularly with Rain Man in 1988.
Gaining his 2nd Academy Award, he played Raymond Babbitt, an artistic savant opposite Tom Cruise, a performance that required incredible precision and restraint.
And his preparation was exhaustive. He spent 2 years actively befriending autistic people, taking them bowling, observing minute behavioral details to get it right without it becoming a caricature.
He also drew on his early experience working at the New York Psychiatric Institute when he was 21, where he sought out environments where human behavior was so exposed.
He summed up the film's theme so well, saying, "Deep inside, Rain Man is about how artistic we all are."
Yeah. Director Barry Levinson just praised his enormous range. And he finished the decade with Family Business in '89, playing opposite Sean Connery, which was this fascinating clash of acting styles that somehow worked beautifully.
Okay, so by the 1990s, Hoffman is no longer the anti-hero disruptor. He's an icon. And we start to see him mixing these huge studio blockbusters with smaller, more personal projects.
Right. We saw him in Dick Tracy, and then much more memorably for a whole generation of kids as Captain Hook in Spielberg's Hook.
A grand theatrical villain. That role got him a Golden Globe nomination.
And a great detail about that performance. The costume was so heavy he had to wear an air-conditioned suit underneath it on set.
That's the kind of effort he put into even his more fantastical roles.
He also showed his playful side, voicing the substitute teacher, Mr. Bergstrom, on The Simpsons.
That's a classic bit of trivia. He was credited under the pseudonym Sam Ettick.
Sam Ettick. Semitic. A clever nod to his heritage.
Then in '95, he's back to serious thrillers with Outblock, playing an army colonel racing to stop a deadly virus. Critics said it was his tense, edgy performance that really gave the movie its quality.
And he finished the decade strong, reuniting with Barry Levinson for the black comedy Wag the Dog in 1997. That earned him his 7th Oscar nomination.
In that one, he played Stanley Motz, this caricature of a Hollywood producer who's hired to fake a war to distract from a presidential sex scandal. It was so incredibly timely.
And speaking of accolades, in 1999 he gets the AFI Life Achievement Award, but his reaction to it reveals so much.
He said he suffered his first and only, thank God, panic attack when he saw the career retrospective reel. And it was followed by a period of depression.
Because, as he confessed, he never felt I deserved success.
It goes right back to Aunt Pearl to seeing himself as the loser. Decades of awards and acclaim couldn't erase that deep-seated self-doubt.
That vulnerability is what fueled his greatest roles. Post-2000, he kept working steadily. He finally got to co-star with his old friend Gene Hackman in Runaway Jury.
He also did acclaimed dramas like Finding Neverland and the very eccentric comedy I Heart Huckabees.
And then he found this huge new audience by leaning into broad comedy with Meet the Fockers. His performance won him an MTV Movie Award.
He also found enduring success as a voice actor playing Master Shifu in the Kung Fu Panda series.
And even there, his method commitment showed. He apparently tutored Jack Black for an important scene to make sure he got the emotional honesty right.
His perfectionism just never diminished. And then in 2012, he finally stepped behind the camera, making his directorial debut with Quartet, starring Maggie Smith.
The film got respectable reviews, a Golden Globe nomination for Smith. It proved he could guide others to excellence.
He also starred in the HBO drama Luck, which was tragically canceled after 3 horses died on set.
But he bounced back, winning an International Emmy for a BBC television film. And more recently, he's still seeking out these challenging projects. He was in Noah Baumbach's The Meyerowitz Stories, which got a standing ovation at Cannes.
He starred alongside his son Jake Hoffman in Sam and Kate.
And he's reunited with his Midnight Cowboy co-star Jon Voight in Francis Ford Coppola's huge epic Megalopolis. The man just never stops.
All right, let's shift gears a bit and look at his personal life, the political backdrop, and some of the controversies that have come up. His first marriage was to Anne Byrne in 1969. They divorced in 1980.
And there's a truly wild historical footnote attached to that marriage.
Yeah.
In 1970, they were living next door to a townhouse in Greenwich Village that was secretly being used by the radical group, the Weathermen.
A bomb they were making accidentally went off, destroying the building.
And he was right there. You can actually see him in the street during the aftermath in the documentary The Weather Underground. His life literally brushed up against domestic terrorism.
Incredible. His second marriage to Lisa Gottsagen started in 1980 and is still going strong. They actually met because their families knew each other growing up.
Right, and they have 4 children together.
Yeah.
And he noted that all of them had bar or bat mitzvahs, which points to his own move toward greater religious observance later in life.
Politically, he's been a longtime supporter of the Democratic Party and Ralph Nader, which you can definitely see reflected in the roles he chose in the 70s. And on a health note, we were happy to read he was successfully treated for cancer in 2013.
Okay, so now we have to turn to the sexual misconduct allegations that came out publicly in 2017, and we need to just neutrally report the events as our sources laid them out.
In 2017, 7 women made allegations against him. One of the most detailed came from Anna Graham Hunter. She was a 17-year-old intern on the TV production of Death of a Salesman in 1985.
She alleged that he made inappropriate comments to her and asked her for foot massages.
In response, Hoffman issued an apology saying, "I have the utmost respect for women and feel terrible that anything I might have done could have put her in an uncomfortable situation. I am sorry, it is not reflective of who I am."
Separately, his on-set relationship with Meryl Streep from Kramer vs. Kramer was also clarified. Her representative confirmed there were issues, including an incident where he slapped her during a scene and an earlier event where he groped her breast during their first meeting.
But the representative also noted that Hoffman apologized for both, and Streep accepted. And it's crucial to add that her rep said the initial reporting of that first meeting was not an accurate rendering of the incident.
The public response, though, really zeroed in on that phrase in his apology. Not reflective of who I am.
Which led to that very public, very tense confrontation with comedian John Oliver at a screening of Wag the Dog.
Oliver just repeatedly challenged that specific phrase, arguing it sounded like a way to dismiss the act without taking full accountability.
Hoffman said he felt blindsided by the questioning and remarked that he felt put in an impossible position. "I'm guilty. Because someone has alleged something, I'm guilty, and it's not true."
The reaction was very mixed, and a number of actors like Bill Murray and Liam Neeson publicly came to his defense, showing how divided the community was on the issue.
So regardless of the controversies, the sheer volume of his professional acclaim is just undeniable. It solidifies his status as this icon who fundamentally changed the landscape of film acting.
Let's just run through the list again because it's staggering. 2 Academy Awards from 7 nominations, 4 BAFTAs, 5 Golden Globes, included with the Cecil B. DeMille Award, and 2 Primetime Emmys. That's a career built on consistent excellence.
And beyond the awards, he has nearly every major lifetime achievement honor you can get. The AFI Award, the Kennedy Center Honors.
International recognition, too. The Golden Lion, the Golden Bear, the Honorary Caesar. He's a global figure.
Critic David Thompson described him as a central figure of the late 60s, 70s, and 80s, putting him in that legendary group with Nicholson, Redford, and Beatty. He was essential to that era.
But I think the Gotham Awards commendation in 2017 really nails his legacy, praising his wide range of roles, often portraying antiheroes or the marginalized, and the creative choices he embodies in these complex characters.
He always refused the easy path, and by doing that, he redefined what star power even means.
So that brings us to the end of our deep dive. Let's just quickly review the key takeaways from a career built on defiance.
First, that sheer persistence. The decade of poverty and that brutal early rejection from his own aunt.
Second, the dramatic, culture-shifting impact of The Graduate, which permanently changed what a Hollywood leading man could look and feel like.
Third, that unwavering commitment to method acting, which led to conflicts, sure, but also yielded these incredibly rich and transformative performances.
And finally, his radical versatility. The ability to shift from the deep vulnerability of Rain Man to the brilliant comedy of Tootsie. He mastered every type by refusing to be one.
So what does this all mean for you, the listener? Hoffman's career is this powerful testament to persistence in the face of rejection. He weaponized his perceived flaws and forced the industry to accommodate his genius.
But the internal battle never stopped. Despite all the success, we heard him say he never felt I deserved it.
And this raises a final provocative question for you to think about. How often does true artistic genius coincide with profound self-doubt? And is that radical vulnerability he brought to all his greatest roles, from Benjamin Braddock to Willy Loman, is it intrinsically linked to that painful early sense of being the loser from his youth?
It suggests that maybe the source of his artistic strength was the very weakness he carried inside. Something to mull over next time you watch one of his films.
We hope this deep dive has given you a clearer, more nuanced appreciation of one of cinema's most important, enduring, and, well, deeply complex actors. Until next time.